Hey, thanks for coming back to Live Action Leatherworks. So in this video, I want to show a bare bones list of tools that you're going to need to get started. So it's my goal to provide you with a starter pack, in a sense, that's not going to break the bank. Over time, if you're anything like me, you're going to amass a whole list of tools, but these are going to be the essentials that you can get started with right away. At the end of the video, I'm also going to show some nice to haves, some optionals that are a little bit more expensive and you're definitely going to get over time, but you don't need right off the bat. Okay? So we're going to move the camera over to get a closer look at the tools and talk a bit more about them. All right, let's talk about our tools. So the first thing you're going to get is a self-healing mat or cutting mat. It's just a large rubber mat. You see it's got some grid lines on it. It's got some ruler guides on the edges, but mainly it's used for cutting out all of your pattern pieces from your leather. It's called self-healing just because it doesn't really leave big score marks when you cut into it, and it's a great tool to have and runs anywhere between $15 and $25 depending on the size you get. From there, we're going to move on to our ruler. This is just a stainless steel, flexible, non-skid ruler. It's got a cork back, and that's just to kind of help it keep it from shifting around on the leather. This one's 18 inches long, and it's good just for marking leather, cutting along it, and those kinds of things. And that's generally about $4 for this one. We also have this square ruler. It's just to help you make square lines, obviously, because you can say, okay, I want this to be 3 inches by 3 inches. You can just mark it there, move it to the next side, and really make quick rectangular or square pieces in your leather. We put some just contact, or it's like some rough tape on the back, just also to help it keep from moving along the leather. And this is about $10. Lastly, this is a speed square. This is also about $10, and this is just to help when I'm making straps. So say I've got to make 4 10-inch straps. I cut out my 30 inches of leather, and then I can go through, mark where my 10 inches are. This, say, for instance, this is the leather strap. I can put it along here and mark a true straight edge, true 90-degree straight edge on that strap. So I get good clean edges and good clean square edges. Okay. Next up, box knives. Just a simple, this is a DeWalt. I'm not being paid by DeWalt. They don't sponsor this, but this one just happens to be a DeWalt brand box cutter. And this is just to cut out all of my pieces. You could get that one, or this is a rotary blade. I really do like the rotary blade. Once you get in there, you can just really get good, clean, straight lines because you're pushing instead of pulling, and that tends to get you a good line. These can run about $7 to $10 for either one of these. And of course, you have to pay for blades as they dull. Okay, so after you do all that, we're going to talk about the pattern. So to get a pattern onto a piece of leather, I just have tracing paper. So in this case, I've got this dragon drawing that I've done. I want to get that onto the leather, so I'll draw it onto this tracing paper, put this on top of the leather, and score it in. And I would do that with a stylus. This stylus is from Tandy Leather. Costs about $25. They're pretty expensive, but it's going to be one of those tools you'll really use a lot and you're going to love. It's just got a ballpoint end and a kind of a sharper end, and that's how we're going to get this pattern onto the leather, which we'll show in various projects how we do that. The tracing paper costs like $4, so not too bad. After we've marked the dragon, say the image, onto the leather, we're going to use this swivel knife to actually cut the lines into the leather. This is an area where I'm going to say do not skimp. This one's my wife's. It fits her hand really well. This one's mine. I have a little bit larger hand, so I like the round, thick barrel. And it's got this great knife on the end of it. The reason why I say not to skimp here, there's just a couple of tools I'm going to say get the best of the best. You're going to use this for almost every project you have. So this swivel knife, especially if you're going to be doing any kind of patterns, any kind of stencils and those kind of things, you're going to want a swivel knife. This particular one, you can actually adjust the height of the saddle here. This one's just standard and stays that size. But yes, swivel knife is going to be a must. And these can run anywhere between $17 to $75. So that will depend on what's going to be best for you. When you're punching the image onto the leather, I started with this poly mat. And the poly mat, this is a poly cutting board. So this poly cutting board is about $10 or so. It's really designed for putting holes, or when you're doing which I'll talk about a little bit later, punching holes for belts and those kind of things. This is what you're going to do that on, because it's really kind of almost like this self-healing mat. It's designed to just take a lot of those punches into it. And you can see I've kind of scored up both sides with that. But to begin with, I use this as the surface. I would do the resisting surface. I would do all of my beveling and tooling on for the leather piece. However, I upgraded to this piece of granite. And this is a situation where I'd say try to go for the granite or marble if you can. Now this particular piece I got from a company that makes granite countertops. So what you do is you just find a company that does that. They're going to, be some kind of home decor business. Walk in and say, I want to see your remnants. And they should have several of these types of remnants. And generally what a remnant means is this is either what they cut out for the sink or was an end to a large piece of granite that they couldn't use. So this is a 12 by 24 inch piece of granite, and I got it for $25. So fairly inexpensive for something you're going to use so often. It's really dense. It's a great resisting surface for accepting all of those tooling impressions. Now we're talking about beveling tools. So this will be used to then bevel the edges after you've cut into them. You'll use these to, they're just different widths and different depths depending on the project that I need. And then to do that, you're going to use this poly mallet to basically strike the end, and that'll put the impression in. Both of these cost about $8 a piece. That's going to be most of your stamps and stuff like that are going to be about $8 a piece, unless you get into the higher craft tool brand. And this poly mallet, I think, was like $7 or $10. But we'll talk about a nice to have that's a replacement for that poly mallet in a little bit. Okay, so after you've cut out the leather, you've got your image on there, you've beveled it, and got all those nice things, you're probably going to want to slick the edges. So edge slicking, which we'll get into in the various projects, is basically just wetting down the edges of the leather and running over them to compress the fibers. This is just a round plastic slicker. This is a wooden one from Craft Tool. And you can see it just has various thicknesses depending on the thickness of your leather. And that's going to be something you want to do for every project. It's just slick the edges and compress those fibers down. It'll be a great little finisher to the project. It's my belief that every great project is in the details, and especially the edges is such a thing you really want to focus on, and it's something I look at with every project from other people. First thing I look at is their edges and see how well they've done those, because that to me shows how much love they put into the project and how much they really care is what they do with those edges. And an unfinished edge just really kind of bugs me. Maybe that's just personal preference. I don't know, but it's just one of those things. All right. Now we're going to talk about dyeing. So the dyeing, a couple of things you're going to need. Just any kind of leather dye. This just happens to be an EcoFlow Gel Antique from Tandy's Leather. This will be various in price depending on the dye, the size of the bottle, and all those kinds of things. Daubers or sponges to put the leather on. Like $3 and $5 a pack, depending. Fairly inexpensive, and you're going to go through these like everything. I mean, they're so much you have to do with the dye. Okay. So along with the dyes and all of that, I want to talk about vinyl gloves. I used to use latex gloves, but I found latex gloves tend to stick to the leather and stick to the dye and just leave spots and really sticky and hard to really work with dyeing the leather. Vinyl gloves have cured all that. I've never had a problem. They come in, I mean, this is $50 in this box, and I think it was like $1 or $2. Phenomenal. Great thing to have. Then, we're talking about shop towels. Shop towels for the dyeing process are mainly used, you know, to wipe off the dye, to buff your pieces, all that kind of fun stuff. And these cost like 98 cents a roll. So you can get them for like $1 or $2, whatever, at a Walmart or a Target. You know, you just buy them kind of in bulk. And man, this has been such a great use. A lot of things we're talking about using paper towels. No. Shop towels. Cannot recommend these guys enough. So much more absorbent. I mean, they're used by mechanics to get grease off their hands. Phenomenal stuff. Cannot recommend it enough. Okay. Then we're going to talk about sealant. Once you're all done, there you go. You're going to want some kind of sealant to seal in the dye and to also protect your leather from any kind of moisture. I happen to use Fibing's Resilene, or you can use whatever you want. This really is one of those things that comes down to preference to the leather crafter. Some people swear by Satilac. Some people do different kind of wax seals, but Resilene has been my favorite to use. On this particular bottle, I think it was like $8, but it really varies, again, depending on what brand you buy and how big it is. Finally, we're going to talk about this multi-tool. It's a mini punch set, and this is how I do all of my punch all my holes for either putting in punch rivets or putting in holes for belts and those kinds of things. You just choose the size you need, put it on, give it a whack, and put the hole straight in. And I love the multi-tool just because it has everything I need right off the bat. This thing runs about $10. So everything I showed there gets into roughly about $270, all said and done. Yeah, not super inexpensive, but it's definitely something I think easily attainable if this is really something you want to get into. You know, with any good crafting thing you want to do, there's a certain amount of upfront costs, but I think $270 will get you there. All right, finally we have the nice to haves. So the first nice to have is going to be a wing divider. A wing divider you're going to use to score, either try to find like the middle portion of your leather. Say it's a belt and you're trying to find that middle, and you just want to score right down the middle very lightly. Or mark borders on your leather. So a lot of times it's like, hey, I'll measure it out and I'll say, hey, I want, let's actually use inches because I'm a dumb American. I want this almost 1/4 of an inch on border. I figure it out and then just score it into the side of the leather, which I then later come back with my swivel knife and mark down. But it's a quick way just to get good, clean borders, because as you see, as I move through, I can go through and just kind of move around the edge. So this is a good, nice to have. It costs about $25. Now another nice to have is a strap cutter. You're going to make a lot of straps with the stuff you make, especially for LARP and cosplay. A lot of things need straps. This is going to save you a lot of time. Yes, you can cut out a strap using a straight edge, just mark down the leather and cut it out. But this is going to ensure that you get a perfect square edge on your leather. You basically measure out the width of the strap. There is a blade right in here. I put my leather inside this thing and make sure it's butt up against that side and just pull it straight back. And you're going to cut out a clean strap. Cannot recommend this enough. I know I put it in the nice to haves because it seems like I'm saying, hey, you have to have this. But I put it in the nice to haves because there are other methods of cutting out straps. And this does run about $40. So do with that information what you will. We've talked about the edges before, and I talked about slicking. Well, another thing I want to talk about is edge beveling. So edge beveling is actually, normally your leather has this squared off edge. With an edge beveler, I basically take off that edge, run it along there, and kind of create, little step in the middle. And then when I do it with my edge slicker and I slick that down, it's actually going to round out your edges. It's just a really nice way to clean up your edges and give a really good quality professional look. They come in various widths, so you can get various sizes to your edges, and also depending on the thickness of the leather, you might use a different size. Like this one's a 2 and I have a 3. These run about $15 a piece. Also on that, we're going to talk about a stitch groover. This little arm shifts up and down this barrel here, and you find basically the width or how far in you want that stitch to go, run it along the edge, and just get a groove out of the leather. And that's where you're going to lay your stitching lines. So if you ever wonder how they get hand-sewn stitches perfectly straight, well, it's because you're going to put that stitch groove in there. That's going to be your guideline. And it also allows you to hammer in the leather and or the lace and get them good and nice and flush with the leather. So that's our stitch groover. Runs about $30. Again, talking about straps. Here we have belt-in punches. I've got 2 types. This one's for 3/4 of an inch. You can see it just kind of makes a horseshoe into the strap. This way it's just going to slide really easily into whatever kind of belt buckle you have. And this one is a multi-ender. I could either use this hole and just square it off there, or kind of go edge by edge and create a point using just the singular edge. Pow, pow. Kind of do it like that. And those do run about, I think this one was about $65. So fairly expensive, but again, something I use quite a lot, but something you may want to wait to purchase down the road. I know I did. It's not something I had right off the bat, but as I started doing more and more straps, I was like, I'm going to need this. And I think this one was about $20 or so. Then a basic stamping set. These are kind of Western style stamping sets. I think they come in like these 4. I think there might be another one that I'm missing, but they have kind of a Western flair. But I say get a basic stamping set as a nice to have, just because you never know when you're going to need these kind of things. Like particularly this one, it's kind of horseshoe, clamshell looking thing. It's a camouflager for when you have a pattern in the middle of the piece, and when it gets to the edges, you use this around the edges just to kind of camouflage that pattern to make it look like it's receding into this part here. I use this one quite often, and even this little just single punch there. But these are fun just to kind of mess around with. Again, nice to have. Does run about $30. Okay, so those are all the nice to haves. Even with the nice to have, oh wait, sorry, we do have one more nice to have. The 3-pound maul. So instead of the poly mallet, the 3-pound maul I use for all of my tooling and putting in, you know, punching in holes or strap ins and all that kind of stuff. It just has a good heft and a good weight behind it to really get good solid strikes. Again, a nice to have because it is $75 to $100. Fairly expensive, but again, something I use in every project. So that'll be something for you to decide if that's what you want to jump out right out and get. So for all the nice to haves, it's about another $200. So if you go that route, all in all, about $400, close to about $300. Now that said, Tandy Leather does sell some sets, and they're anywhere from, I think one's like $90, another one is up to $600, and those sets will be kind of everything you need. To a degree, I didn't quite agree with what they sold in the $90 set, and the $600 set I was like, well, that's way too much. So this is my idea. I've kind of culled everything that I have down to what I really think is absolutely necessary to get leather crafting. Okay, I hope that was informative. I hope you have a good idea of what you're going to need for your projects. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be sure to put down, a lot of the prices in the description. And we'd love to have you come join us with the various work-alongs, and we hope to see you there. All right, have a good one.